Part 27. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 261. Chapter 261. It's not that it can't be cured, it's that it's not cured. Well, Brother Wang, don't get angry, business is like this with its ups and downs. Yes, you should take good care of your health if you need us in the future, just ask. Shopkeeper Lu on the other side finally couldn't bear it anymore and secretly asked an acquaintance of the shopkeeper of Buzz Wang, "Where did our boss get the silver?" "It's more than 10,000 taels. The shopkeeper of Buzz Wang looked gloomy and said in a low voice, "Don't you know, your Sihaju and several of our shops were sold by the owner, and we only managed to collect more than 10,000 taels. Shopkeeper Lu took a breath. He guessed that the Wang family would decline due to a series of disasters, but he didn't expect it to happen so quickly. His eyes rolled quickly, and he stepped forward and knelt down. "My boss, I have found out. What happened today at Sihaju is because there was a boy in the back kitchen who was jealous of the chef who always scolded him, so he brought crotons, mixed them with soybeans, and ground them together into tofu. Fortunately, the tofu went rancid. Did not cook. The old man who died of illness was infected because he met the chef and got a bowl of soy milk to quench his thirst." Wang Yuanwei frowned and sighed, and after a long while he said, "I know, the matter has been revealed, and there is no use in investigating it." The other creditors were all sighing after hearing this. It's true that 1,000 mile collapsed in an ant nest. The grievances of a young boy can so easily destroy Sihaju. Shopkeeper Lu took a deep breath and kowtowed his head to the ground. "My boss, I'm getting older, and now Sihaju has been sold. I want to ask my boss to be merciful, let go of the deed of betrayal to my family, and allow me to return home rural pension." Before Wang Yuanwei could say anything, the other shopkeepers came to their senses, rushed forward and knelt down. "Master, we are getting older too. Master, the shop is gone and we have no use for us, let us go back to our hometown together." The tree fell and the hosen scattered. The remaining creditors watched and listened, and when they looked at Yuan Wang, their pity became even stronger. Not only did they see that the Wang family was beginning to decline, but so did these servants, who immediately planned their own retreat. Wang Yuanwei's face was pale and turned livid with anger. He wanted to speak, but as soon as he opened his mouth, he vomited blood. Although he quickly covered his mouth with his hand, blood still leaked out through the gaps between his fingers. Everyone was shocked when they saw it, and they all shouted, "Doctor, doctor!" Dr. Sun had been standing nearby, and now he was very impatient and cursed, "What are you shouting? I'm so anxious now. What did you do just now? You take turns collecting debts and quitting your job together. Even a good person will be angry and vomit blood." Everyone was scolded and lowered their heads. They felt very guilty for a moment, and they really felt as guilty as a murderer. The king waved his hand, and he swallowed back the blood in his throat. Then he ordered Wang Fu, "There is a secret compartment under the desk. There are the deeds of sale of these people. Take them all and distribute them." Wang Fu was so angry that he wiped his tears. "Master, you can't do this." Wang Yuanwei insisted that Wang Fu had no choice but to take out all the deeds of betrayal. Each shopkeeper rushed forward, took his share, and knelt down to kowtow. "Sir, we have no choice but to do so." Wang Yuanwei took a few breaths and wanted to say something, but he suddenly fell down from his chair. "Master, master!" Wang Fu hugged his master and saw that Dr. Sun was still standing aside and did not come forward. He was so angry that he yelled, "You quack doctor! Didn't you say that if we drink the medicine, our master will be fine? How on earth are you going to treat our master? Yes, it's getting worse." The word "su" is a quack, which poked Dr. Sun's lung tube. He was so angry that he couldn't hold the door shut, and started to curse, "He is going to die of illness. If I prescribe medicine, it will make him live a few more days. When I am the Lord of Hell, I will not let him die. Besides, he has blood clots in his brain, not to mention when he was injured more than 10 years ago, or just 5 or 6 years ago, just look for someone. Doctor, if you prescribe some medicinal decoction to activate blood circulation and remove blood stasis, it won't kill you now. I don't care what your family's intentions are, why you don't treat him, why you don't want him to live, but you can't rely on me. On the head. This person was killed by your family and has nothing to do with me. Without treatment? Putting it off until death? It was so quiet in the yard that you could hear a pin drop. No one is a fool, especially the people in this courtyard, who are either the boss or the shopkeeper. They wish that all their shrewd eyelashes were empty. Think about that time when Wang Yuanwei was rescued from the Wang family with a serious head injury. He forgot his last name and where his hometown was, so in order to repay his kindness, he became the son-in-law of the Wang family. Over the years, everyone has noticed how Wang Yuanwei behaves. It can be said that he loves and respects the Wang family's daughter, and is also conscientious in business, more than doubling the Wang family's property. Could it be that the Wang family was afraid that such a good son-in-law would not be able to keep him when the wound on his head healed, so they kept delaying and refused to treat Mr. Wang? At this time, Wang Fu seemed to refuse to believe it and retorted loudly, "It's impossible. Our wife has been to dozens of doctors over the years, but none of them said it can't be cured." Fart, Dr. Sun was also angry, rolled his eyes and cursed, "My medicine boy will prescribe medicine for such a simple disease. If something can't be cured, it's just because he doesn't want to be cured. After cured, the husband ran away, I would have to hide it too. Mrs. Wang, the only queen in the Wang family, doesn't want to treat her husband's illness, but sees her husband having headaches all the time, and is now terminally ill?" Everyone looked at each other and kept their mouths tightly shut, for fear that they would burst out in surprise as soon as they opened their mouths. This is so surprising. If it were true, then wouldn't Yuan Wang be so pitiful? Wang Yuanwei also heard the meaning of the doctor's words, and suddenly turned his head, his eyes were about to burst. "No, impossible." Dr. Sun seemed to want to say a few unpleasant words, but perhaps he was worried that Wang Yuanwei was about to die, so he sighed, "Forget it, if you don't believe it, don't believe it. You were sold by someone and you helped them count the money. It's quite pitiful." After saying that, he carried the medicine box and walked out. "You guys please ask someone else to be smart, I don't have the ability to save the unjust dead man." In the blink of an eye, Dr. Sun disappeared when he went out. The creditors and shopkeepers looked at each other, as if they were afraid of getting into trouble, and they all dispersed like birds and beasts with their hands in hand. In the courtyard that was noisy just now, Wang Fu was the only one left accompanying his master. The other slaves watched from a distance and did not dare to come forward. Wang Fu wiped away his tears, helped his master into the house to rest, and began to cook medicine again. Outside the courtyard of Wang's house, people watching the excitement could hear intermittently. Some heard it, and some didn't, but the words Dr. Sun yelled were clear. Seeing the doctor come out angrily, everyone took him to a nearby tea house and quickly served him tea and snacks. Someone asked impatiently, "Dr. Sun, what's going on with the Wang family? Why do we feel like the Wang family didn't cure their illness because of you?" "Yes," others agreed, "Wang Yuanwei has been suffering from headaches for many years, and no one can cure it. I can't blame you. That person outside the Wang Yuan is doing well, maybe he is seriously ill this time." Dr. Sun drank half a pot of tea in one breath, and seemed to be still angry, so he said, "The waiter in Sihiju was jealous of the chef, so he found croton mixed with soybeans and ate the guests to death. The king was so anxious that he vomited blood, and then it happened that their cargo ship was robbed by water bandits, and they wanted to pay more than 10,000 taels of silver. Wang Yuanwei was also a tough man, so he sold Sihiju and his shop to pay off the debt. Ah, so many things happened to the Wang family. I heard about Sihiju, but this cargo ship was robbed by water bandits. What a bad luck. Yes, blessings never come in pairs, and misfortunes never come alone. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, delayed flowering. Chapter 262. Chapter 262. Good people don't live long. Everyone sighed and worried about Yuan Wei. Dr. Sun waved his hand and continued, "That's not all. The shopkeepers of the Wang family's shops were afraid of being implicated, so they asked for deeds to sell their bodies and return to their hometowns. This was just adding insult to injury. Mr. Wang was so angry that he vomited blood again. Tell me, it's so serious, what can I do? Helping to stop the vomiting of blood is already good, but the servants of the Wang family insist on saying that my medical skills are not good and I am not dedicated. It's obviously their family's fault. A small injury can be cured by taking a few doses of medicine, but they refuse to treat it. They delayed it for more than 10 years, and now they have killed someone, and they still want to put a basin on my head. It's simply too much. It's so annoying." When the tea house owner heard that this was wrong, he was surprised and said, "No way, Wang Yuanwei has been ill for so many years, but he has not stopped receiving treatment. I have seen more than a dozen doctors coming in and out of the Wang family, and they have not stopped prescribing medicine." The others also nodded. They were all nearby neighbors, so naturally they all noticed. Dr. Sun snorted coldly, "What can't be done? The Wang family has bad intentions and wants to deceive people easily. Their family is afraid that their son-in-law will run away. However, a few doses of medicine can cure the problem, but it can't be delayed. Give him good treatment. Now his son-in-law is dying and his business has collapsed. This is retribution." After saying that, he stood up and left, cursing, "Whoever can cure it can be cured, I can't help it. I didn't ask for a penny, and I made a lot of trouble." The tea house was quiet for a long time. I don't know who broke the silence first and asked, "Did I hear you correctly?" It should be right. It was as if someone had dropped a bomb in the tea house. It was quiet just now, but now it is noisy. Dr. Sun, is it true that Mrs. Wang refuses to treat Wang Yuanwei well? Isn't it true, Mrs. Wang and Wang Yuanwei are so loving, and they even gave birth to 2 children. Yes, that person outside the Wang family is such a nice person. We outsiders are not willing to let him get sick. How can it be that Mrs. Wang is willing to bear it? We have been married for many years, so we can't be so cruel, right? You can't say for sure. When Wang Yuanwei came to the Wang family, he looked like a scholar. If he hadn't hurt his head and couldn't remember where his home was, he wouldn't have stayed in the Wang family as a son-in-law. It makes sense. If Wang Yuan has recovered from his headache and thinks about the past, his family is from a scholarly family. There is no way he would want a merchant's daughter to be his wife. I still can't believe that the Wang family seems to be doing well on weekdays, so they can't be so cruel, right? Besides, with so many doctors coming in and out of the Wang family, it's impossible for no one to notice that Wang Yuanwei's illness has been delayed. You are really short-sighted. Even if you notice it, so what? You can seal it for a few taels of silver. That is, Wang Yuanwei is just a son-in-law who has married into another family. The Wang family has a big business. If I put it on you, would you risk offending the Wang family and tell Wang Yuanwei the truth? Wang Yuanwei is really pitiful. Was he killed like this? The tea house owner quickly opened his mouth to smooth things over and reminded everyone to be careful. This is not easy to say. We just heard a few gossips. Maybe there is some misunderstanding. But having said that, he also knew in his heart that Wang Yuanwei Su was really delayed by the Wang family. After all, if it were him, such a good son-in-law, he wouldn't want to let him go. But thinking about it from Wang Yuanwai's perspective, he couldn't help but feel sad. From a young boy to a middle-aged man, in the blink of an eye, he gave birth to 2 sons for the Wang family, continued the family lineage, and worked as a cow and a horse to do business, but he didn't even get the slightest bit of heartache from his wife. Someone whispered, Wang Yuanwai's disease cannot be cured, let alone remember where his home is and what his name is, right? He is really dead, and he will be a lonely ghost. Yes, his family is not sure if they are looking forward to his return. Who would have thought that his son would be so pitiful? Can't God just open his eyes and let Wang Yuanwai find his family before he dies? How could such a good person like Yuan Wang end up like this? Good people don't live long, but disasters last for thousands of years. Let me ask, is there any family in our area that has lost a son? Where can I ask? What if they're not from our area? Besides, it's been so many years. While everyone was talking about the excitement, they saw a group of people passing by the tea house and directly entering the Wang family courtyard. Someone recognized the leader and couldn't help but exclaimed, "It's the third master of the Wang family. Is someone from the Wang family here?" I just said, the Wang family is making such a big fuss, how can it be possible that no one from my clan comes? Yeah, I've been making trouble all day, and it's too late. Let's see what the Wang family is going to do. What can we do? There is only one person besides the king, and he is so sick. Even if he knows that he is being harmed, there is nothing he can do. In the final analysis, Wang Yuanwai's life is miserable. Everyone wanted to say a few more words, but it was already dusk now. In order to avoid worrying at home, many people paid for the tea and went back. Of course, they also brought back the excitement they saw that day. In the courtyard of the Wang family, Third Master Wang had a headache from the smell of medicine filling the room. Looking at his brother-in-law's face, he could only frown and step forward and asked, "New Autumn Festival, it's only half a month, why are you so sick, is it so heavy?" Wang Yuanwai seemed a little absent-minded and simply replied, "I don't know, why is it like this?" Mr. Wang thought for a moment and then motioned to the doctor he brought to come forward. "I brought the doctor from the mansion to check your pulse. Maybe you'll be fine after taking some medicine." Wang Yuanwai said nothing, but there was a bit of light in his eyes. The worshipping doctor looked a little hesitant, stretched out his sleeves, and finally sat down to check his pulse. When he stood up, he said, "Please be patient, I will give you a prescription, and you will be relieved after drinking it for a few days." After saying that, when he turned around, he gave Mr. Wang a wink. Mr. Wang Sanyi understood and followed him out together. After finding a place under the eaves of an empty house, the doctor whispered, "Third Master, in fact, I came here to check the pulse a few years ago, and I also saw that there was congestion in the patient's head. He can get better by activating blood circulation and removing blood stasis. It's not difficult. But what?" Mr. Wang didn't understand for a moment and asked. The doctor hesitated for a moment and then responded, "But the lady said that there is no need to activate blood circulation and remove blood stasis, just relieve the pain temporarily. After so many years, the disease has become serious. Now it is completely hopeless. The patient is only about a month old. It's a matter of effort." Wang Sanyi is not stupid after all. Now he finally understands. For a moment, he really didn't know whether to be surprised at his cousin's cruelty or to sympathize with his brother-in-law's pity. But in the final analysis, his surname is Wang, so he cannot put aside his cousin and favor his brother-in-law. Even though they often interact with each other on weekdays, they get along very well. Wang Sanyi took a deep breath and ordered, "Since it can't be cured, just prescribe some warming medicine." The doctor got the order and hurriedly went to prescribe medicine. Third Master Wang called Wang Fu over again and asked carefully about what happened in the past few days. He said, "I will send someone to handle the business matters. Don't go out these days. Take good care of your master at home. In addition, I will also send someone to pick you up from your madam's side. Wang Fu lowered his head and quickly agreed, looking timid and submissive, but no one saw the sarcasm in his eyes. Master has laid out everything well. Do the Wang family think that by sealing the courtyard and not allowing them to come in and out, no one will know about the evil things the Wang family has done? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 263. Chapter 263 Reassurance from the Family. Dusk in the small town of Luoan is the busiest of the day. School is over, and students come out in groups to find a place to eat something good. They worry about their homework and secretly complain to their teachers. This is the most relaxing moment of the day. Wang Yi held hands with her eldest son after school. She was happy to hear her son talking happily about the praise he received from his teacher today, but she still hit her son with a cold face, beware of arrogance and impetuosity. I have only been studying for a few days. No matter how good you are, it will be limited. I will continue to work hard in the future and add 10 big characters when I go back tonight. Brother Li was originally smiling, but his mother poured cold water on him, and he wilted, "Yes, mother." Wang Yi couldn't bear to let her son be like this, so she bought a box of snacks and told her son to study hard when he grew up. Brother Li responded, but the light in his eyes gradually dimmed. As soon as the mother and son arrived home, before they could eat, someone found them outside the yard, and the servants ran in frantically to report the news. "Madam, someone from the tribe came to report that something happened at home. What's going on? Is there something wrong with the business? Quick, let someone come in." Wang Yi stood up in shock and quickly called someone in. Brother Li also put down his snacks, his face full of concern. "Mom, does Dad have a headache again?" Wang Yi was stunned for a moment and replied, "I'll find out soon." Soon, the servant brought in a steward. Wang Yi also knows him. This person is Wang Er, one of Wang Sanye's assistants. "Wang Er, why are you here? What happened to our family?" Wang Yi couldn't hold her breath and asked. Wang Er saluted, glanced at Brother Li, and replied, "Don't worry, madam, it's not a big deal." Wang Yi understood and drove her son away. "Brother Li, go wash up and change clothes. We will have dinner soon." Brother Li stood up and walked out. Wang Er then quickly said, "Madam, something serious is going on. A boy from Sihija poisoned a guest who came to eat. The guest's family made a fuss at the door of the restaurant. A member of staff went to deal with it. He vomited blood in a hurry. Sihija, we had no choice but to close our doors. Then the ship the family was transporting goods to was hit by pirates and sank. Several other families came to collect debts, and the staff sold out Sihija and several shops to collect the money. Seeing that things were not going well, the shopkeepers of each house also asked for a contract of sale and broke up. Now the house is in a mess. The third master asked the villain to come and ask you to go back as soon as possible. If it is later, the situation will be worse." "No. Impossible." Wang Yi was a little confused after hearing this, and without caring about being rude, she grabbed Wang Er's arm. "Are you lying to me?" Wang Er quickly knelt down and said, "Madam, how dare I lie to you?" This was all asked by third master himself, and even, I'm afraid everyone in the city knows about it now. After all, the Sihiju incident is so troublesome. Big. Wang Yi took a deep breath and finally calmed down, but she became a little annoyed. "Where's the master? What are you doing? Why is Sihiju so angry that he vomits blood when he can't handle it well? At a time like this, shouldn't we first bribe the deceased's family and settle the matter first?" Why did it end up like this? Wang Yi complained and disliked her husband for not handling the matter well. Wang Yi thought of Wang Yuanwai's miserable appearance on the verge of death, and couldn't help but sympathize with him, so he added an explanation: Yuanwei has a serious headache and keeps vomiting blood. The doctor in the palace said that he may not live long. Dad, before Wang Yi could answer, Brother Li, who was eavesdropping outside the door, rushed out. He pulled Wang Yi's sleeve and asked with red eyes, "Is my father going to die? It's impossible. Wow, I want to go home, I want to find my father." Wang Yi also knew that she was scared at this moment. She shouted to the slaves to hook up the carriage and walked back immediately. Unfortunately, when we rushed outside the city gate, it was already late at night and the city gate was closed, so we could only wait at the door. Finally, they stayed up until dawn. As soon as the city gate opened, the carriage quickly entered the city and ran back to the south of the city. When getting off the bus at the door, Wang Yi hesitated for a moment and was helped up by the maid, just in time to meet her neighbor next door. Wang Yi wanted to say hello, but the man turned around and went back with a sullen face. Wang Yi frowned, wondering what was wrong with this neighbor, but she had no time to pay attention at the moment. In the study room in the front yard, the smell of medicine was overwhelming. Wang Yuanwai was lying on the bed, his face was sallow, and his whole body shriveled up, like a rice stalk swaying in the field in early winter. Brother Li only took one look at him, then he rushed forward, hugged his father and cried loudly. Wang Yi's eyes were also red, and she stepped forward and asked, "Master, what's wrong with you? You're so sick, why don't you send someone to find me?" Wang Yuanwai shook his head with difficulty, stretched out his hand to touch his son slowly, and drove him to the backyard in a dumb voice, "Go and see your brother." Brother Li was only 9 years old, but the suffering of waiting last night made him grow a lot. Thinking of his young brother, he hurried out. Wang Yi wanted to speak, but Wang Yuanwai closed his eyes. Wang Yi always felt that something was wrong. Seeing her husband like this, she could not ask further questions, so she could only go out to find her trusted servants and mother-in-law to ask. As a result, the more she listened, the darker her face became and the more unsure she felt. She was mentally prepared for her husband's collapse, but why did the business also have so many problems? Sihiju and 5 shops were almost half of the family's property. In just one day, they were all gone. She couldn't bear it any longer, so she took people to the Wang family's old residence. Mr. Wang didn't have time to talk to his old father about the Four Seas residence last night, so he came over to drink tea with his old father this morning and explain everything clearly. Finally, he said tentatively, "Dad, Xiao Yi has not treated Zhengkai for so many years. Is this because she is afraid that Zhengkai will recover and leave her and the child?" Mr. Wang took a sip of tea and nodded in response, "You have been paying more attention to Xiao Yi's family affairs recently. Back then, your cousin forced him to keep Wang Zhengkai. Once he recovers from his illness, it will be very troublesome to think about the past. So, Xiao Yi did this out of necessity. Forced to stay?" Mr. Wang's heart skipped a beat and he had some vague guesses. Before he could ask any more questions, Wang Yi came crying. As soon as she entered the house, she knelt down. "Uncle, woo-woo, my husband is dying and the business is in trouble. What will the children and I do in the future?" Mr. Wang quickly helped her up and comforted her. "Why are you panicking? You are a girl from our Wang family, and we will not let you lose your place." Even Mrs. Wang also spoke up, "When your father passed away, he left 20,000 taels of silver for you and put it here with me, so don't be afraid if the family business collapses. As for Wang Zhengkai's serious illness, this is his destiny. Let him take good care of him and wait until the day when he closes his eyes, he can take care of himself. When the time comes, let your third brother help you open some good shops and businesses. You can take your 2 children and continue to live a good life. With the Wang family here, No one will dare to bully you. Wang Yi was also surprised when she heard this, and finally stopped crying. Old Mrs. Wang comforted her a few more times and asked Mr. Wang to send her out. In the study room in the front yard of the Wang family, Brother Li and Brother Cat were crying with tears on their faces, holding onto their father's arms and not letting go. Wang Yuanwei gently patted their heads and told them, "I'm afraid Dad will never make it. After Dad dies, Brother Li must study hard, not for the glory of the family, but to learn skills, and then take good care of your brother. You two brothers must depend on each other and live well. As for your mother." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 264. Chapter 264, Officials Come to Visit. Wang Yuanwei shut up mid-sentence, with a complicated look on his face. At this time, Wang Fu came in and reported, "Master, my wife is back." Wang Yuanwei hesitated for a moment and then told his sons, "Go and stand behind the screen. Don't make any sound. Wait until your mother leaves before you come out." Brother Cat looked confused, but Brother Li grabbed his younger brother and left. Soon, Wang Yi came in. When she saw the medicine bowl on the table, she picked it up and said, "Master, are you feeling better? I'll give you medicine." Wang Yuanwei reached out and knocked over the medicine bowl, and asked in a deep voice, "Wang Yi, it has been more than 10 years since I married into the Wang family. You know best how I treat you and how I treat the Wang family, but why do you want to kill me?" Wang Yi's face turned pale with fright, her lips trembled and she refused to admit, "I don't understand what the master is talking about." "Don't you understand?" Wang Yuan sat up and was extremely angry. "I have a headache because there is congestion in my brain. I can recover with a few medicines and simply activating blood circulation and removing blood stasis. But you bribed the doctor time and time again and said that my headache cannot be cured. It has been causing me pain for more than 10 years, I'm going to die soon after this. Wang Yi, you are so cruel." Wang Yi was exposed, covered her face and started to cry. Having been married for more than 10 years, she naturally felt distressed, but she had to do so. When Wang Yuanwei saw that she didn't speak, he became even more angry and threw the pillow at hand. "Even if I did something bad, we have 2 sons. How could you deliberately try to kill me for their sakes? If they don't have a father in the future, what do you want them to do?" Wang Yi was so frightened that she got far away from the bed, wiped a few tears, and said cruelly, "Master, I am sorry for you in this life, and I will definitely repay you in the next life. At this point, I can't help it even if I regret it. You can rest in peace and recuperate while waiting for you. After you leave, I will take good care of Brother Li and Brother Cat." After saying that, she turned around and was about to go out, but she heard someone shouting from behind the screen, "Mother!" Brother Cat was young after all and didn't understand what his parents were arguing about, so he ran out and hugged his mother. Brother Li understood everything. He walked out with a pale face and weak legs, looking at his mother in disbelief. Wang Yi suddenly looked at her husband on the bed, extremely angry. She didn't expect that her husband would hate her so much that he would reveal her plan in front of her children. She wanted to explain a few words to her eldest son, but she heard a commotion at the door. A servant ran in and shouted, "Madam, an official is coming to the door and wants to take you to the government office." Wang Yi's face turned pale at that time. "Why are you arresting me?" But 4 or 5 officials had already come in, confirmed Wang Yi's identity, pinched her arm and walked out. Brother Li and Brother Mao were frightened. Wang Yuanwei struggled out of bed and shouted to his slaves to hitch the carriage. Then he took 2 children and chased after them. Due to the relocation of the capital, the originally inconspicuous Xiaoshufuyamen was now upgraded to Jingzaiyin. Moreover, because there were many conflicts between the dignitaries in Kyoto and the local families, the government office was very lively all day long. Therefore, the emperor specially sent a well-known upright minister to sit in charge and deal with everything impartially. He never looked at favors, but only looked at right and wrong and evidence. After more than a year, everyone is convinced, and conflicts have gradually diminished. After all, no one can take advantage of an official, so it is better to sit down and have a good talk. But today is really a special day. In the early morning, people came into the city wearing sackcloth and mourning. There were more than a dozen people, old and young, all dressed as ordinary people, but they were holding 2 tablets, and each one was crying loudly. Master Qingtian makes the decision for us. The king of the world, the old man, killed our son. Wow, my son died unjustly. Dad, my son misses you. Yarguze, you have a spirit in heaven, and ask your mother to redress your grievances and avenge you. With such a movement, naturally many people gathered around to watch the excitement and couldn't help but talk about it. What are these people talking about, Sihija? Didn't Sihija just poison someone to death yesterday? Is it still the same thing? It doesn't sound like me, it sounds like Mr. Wang, who lives all over the world. Mr. Wang has been dead for many years. How can he kill someone? It's impossible. Let's go and take a look. The Wang family is also unlucky. One thing happens after another, endlessly. Soon, the team got bigger and bigger. When they arrived in front of the government office, the street was almost blocked by onlookers. When Lord Fuyin heard the drum of injustice, he quickly dressed up and went to the hall. Seeing this group of people wearing sackcloth and wearing filial piety, he also frowned. After asking carefully, these people spoke confusingly, and finally put the whole thing together. It turned out that these were 2 villagers from the Weisha village in the north of the city. Their son suddenly disappeared more than 10 years ago and could not be found. I am very sad that I can't find anyone at home. But yesterday one of the family went to the city for business and drank water at a tea house in the south of the city. They heard something new, which sounded similar to some of the words of their son back then. So the 2 families guessed that their son had been killed, so they came to complain, trying to find out how the son died and where his bones were. 2 lives were involved. Lord Fuyin asked the official to fetch the only daughter of the Wang family, while at the same time asking about the foundation of the Wang family. The master standing in the corner is a smart man. In addition to helping Mr. Fuyin handle paperwork, he also wants to be well informed. It happened to be that his family lived in an alley in the south of the city. He heard the father of the family, who likes to go to tea houses, explain everything about the Wang family clearly last night. At this moment, I told Mr. Fuyin exactly what he said, adding at the end, "Of course, sir, this is all what the neighbors near the Wang family heard about, and there is no evidence." Although Mr. Fuyin is upright, he is not a solid lump of elm wood. Otherwise, he would not have gained the emperor's trust and sat in this position. His keenness in solving cases over the years allowed him to guess that there was something fishy about it. After all, the business of the Wang family just collapsed yesterday, and it was revealed that the only daughter of the Wang family deliberately refused to treat her husband-in-law and almost killed him. Today, someone came to sue the Wang family for causing death. It is really a coincidence. There can be coincidences in the world, but if so many coincidences are gathered together, it is no longer a coincidence. Soon, Wang Yi was taken over. The crowd watching the excitement dispersed automatically, leaving a path for the officials. Some people were brave enough to look at Wang Yi carefully and couldn't help but ask, "Is this the only daughter of the Wang family, the one with the snake-hearted heart?" That's right. She didn't treat her husband's illness and dragged him until he was about to die. She is so beautiful, but she has a vicious heart. No wonder people say women have the most vicious heart. Wang Yi turned pale in shock when she heard a few words. She finally knew why her neighbors hid when they saw her in the morning. "I originally thought that only my family knew about this, but I didn't expect that everyone knows about it now." Her legs were a little weak, but the official would not show mercy, so he dragged her to the hall. The governor glanced at Wang Yi, who was kneeling down the hall. Just as he was about to speak, there was another commotion outside the government office. Soon, Wang Yuanwei and his two children also crowded to the front of the hall and shouted, "Sir, I am Wang Xingkaiu, Wang Yi's husband, please allow me to come to the hall." Mr. Fuyan nodded, and the officers moved aside. Wang Yuanwei led the two children and knelt down as soon as they entered. He was already sallow and thin, looking extremely ill, but when he came in such a hurry, he looked even more embarrassed. When he opened his mouth to speak, he actually vomited blood again. Although he pulled up his sleeves in time to gag, there was still blood at the corners of his mouth. Everyone in the hall could not help but sigh when they saw this. Wang Yuanwei is such a good person. He is about to be killed by Wang Yi, a poisonous woman, and he still comes to protect her. Yeah, maybe it's for the sake of the two children. Wang Yi is too ungrateful. I can't find such a good husband anywhere. Yes, such a person deserves to be struck by lightning. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 265. Chapter 265. If there are too many coincidences, it is no longer a coincidence. Even Lord Fuyan couldn't bear to let Wang Yuanwei speak, and told him, "Listen first, and wait for me to ask clearly." After saying that, he was stunned and asked, "Wang Yi, do you know that your father killed two people more than 10 years ago?" Wang Yi trembled in shock and subconsciously retorted, "Impossible, sir, my father is a good man." "What's impossible?" The two families wearing sackcloth and mourning stopped and shouted immediately. An old man shouted directly, "Back then, my son, Ergoze, suddenly came back with a lot of money. My family was so scared that they didn't tell him anything when asked. Later, someone came over from the next door and the two of them drank too much together, and we didn't hear anything. A few words. They both said that the Wang family was taken advantage of. They worked hard to find a son-in-law. They just pushed the man down the mountain on purpose. They thought they had killed someone, but they didn't expect that the man only had his head chopped off. They also had money to take." He said that Sujintan was really a good place to make a fortune and made them a fortune. Another old lady also wiped her tears, "Yes, I heard that too." Later they came back with money again and said that the Wang family had a great business and they were willing to give any amount of money to find a good son-in-law to support the family. But not long after, my family Ergozi and Chuanzuzu were nowhere to be seen. We thought these two guys had made a fortune and were looking for a place to gamble and go away happily, but they must have been gone for so many years. Something must be wrong. A middle-aged woman also cried and said, "Yesterday I went to my parents' house and heard some gossip in the tea house. They said that the son-in-law of the Wang family in the alley also injured his head and married into the Wang family, but the family did not give him treatment for fear that he would want to marry him. What happened before I woke up? I suddenly remembered what Ergoza said. They must have helped the Wang family kidnap people, and the Wang family silenced them." After saying that, she burst into tears and said, "Ergo, you died so unjustly. Since you left for more than 10 years, I have taken care of my children and raised my parents. I have suffered so much. What a miserable life I have suffered." The rest of the people also started crying together. Wang Yi's face was as white as paper, her body was trembling, and she tried her best to argue, "Impossible, you are lying. If you just hear a few gossips, you will slander my father." The king member looked at Wang Yi from outside, his expression full of rage. "I injured my head on Broken Gold Beach, and was carried back to Wang's house by the old man and Uncle Zhong. Wang Yi, tell the truth, how did I get hurt? Did he really fall off the cliff accidentally?" "Yes, Uncle Zhong, that's Uncle Zhong," an old man shouted. Ergoza said this name. "I'm afraid that the money will be spent. Goza said he's not afraid if it's all spent. He's going to Sihija to find the king. The master took the money, but when he came back empty-handed, he said he would go to Uncle Jean. Uncle Jean was a helper and he didn't dare not give it. When Uncle Jean's name was shouted out, Wang Yi became desperate and slumped on the ground. What went wrong, and why were things that had been hidden for so many years revealed? And Uncle Jean, if I had known this would happen, I should have dealt with him as well. Wang Yi suppressed her guilt and shouted loudly, "False accusation, this is all a false accusation. I want to find my uncle. My uncle is Wang Baoyi. You can't bully me, an orphan." The people outside the hall also exploded at this moment. No wonder the Wang family didn't treat Wang Yuanwei. It turns out Wang Yuanwei was kidnapped. Yes, that's right. He should have beaten the king to death and then brought him back to the Wang family. This is too wild. I'll knock out whoever I like and take it back. The Wang family is afraid that Wang Yuanwei will recover from his illness and think of revenge in the past. Yes, if something hadn't happened in Sihija, or if Dr. Sun hadn't shouted out the dirty things about the Wang family, Wang Yuanwei would have died as well. What a ghost. I didn't know I was being tricked so badly. This Wang family is really a wolf's den. The father is so cruel, and the daughter is not a good thing either. In the hall, Mr. Fuyan frowned even more. Even though these people who made the complaint talked a lot and were not afraid to reveal that they had spent unconscionable money, they still felt that the reason for the complaint was a bit far-fetched. The family's son has been missing for more than 10 years without taking care of him. He only heard a few words in the tea house and then came to complain in mourning. Or are you sure that your son was killed? But now it is certain that this case was a premeditated murder, and it cannot be left alone. What's more, in full view of the public, the only daughter of the Wang family has moved out to support her family. If he doesn't continue to investigate, it will seem like he is afraid of the Wang family. In a restaurant opposite the government office, the private rooms on the second floor were snapped up by people who heard the news and came to watch the excitement. But the best one among them has been booked early. Lu Zhihen was sitting at the window, cracking melon seeds with a look of great interest. He turned around to look at Mrs. Kui, who was wearing a curtain hat, and said with a smile, "Jinro, when I first met the three brothers of the Li family, I thought they were all pretty good, but today it's even more exciting. I admire the boss of the Li family, he is such a ruthless character. When the matter is settled, I will definitely cooperate with him in business. There is nothing wrong with such a person." Mrs. Kui nodded, senior brother Wen said the same. After finishing speaking, she was still a little worried and asked, "Senior brother Wen has something to do and he can't come. Is there nothing going wrong outside the city? And about Broken Gold Beach, have you made it clear to Yu Sheng?" "Don't worry, Yu Sheng's side sent a letter last night, and the one outside the city was handled by Yeshan himself." Lu Zhihen waved his hand, signaling her not to worry. "Finally," he said, "according to me, even if that old guy died 100 times, he wouldn't be able to atone for his sins. Junior brother Wen actually sent his useless children and grandchildren to Zhuangzi in the south to be tenants. Humph, it was really an advantage for them. He should go to jail with his father." Mrs. Kui smiled and said, "That person is the most important witness. He must be comforted first. After the matter is over, there will naturally be another explanation. If their family farmed honestly, they would have left a way for themselves to survive. If they were not honest, there are many salt fields and mines in the south that can make them work hard." Lu Zhihen was still going to talk, but the street downstairs suddenly became noisy. A group of officers came over escorting an old man wearing coarse clothes. The old man was a little thin and his face was abnormally white, as if he had not seen the sun for a long time. When they got to the court, the old man knelt on the ground. Before Master Fuyan could ask questions, Wang Yuanwei had already rushed over and grabbed the old man's arm. "Uncle Jean, Uncle Jean." I have treated you well all these years. I paid all my son's gambling debts, and you actually lied to me for so many years. Tell me, what happened back then? Who am I? Why did I hurt my head? The old man said that I fell at the foot of the cliff and he saved my life. He wanted me to marry him and repay the Wang family for saving my life. I've repaid you. I endured others' ridicule that I was a surrogate son-in-law, working like a cow or a horse, and taking care of business. I made so much money for the Wang family, and I treated Wang Yi so well. Could it be all a lie? I don't believe it, I don't believe it. Perhaps he was out of breath. Wang Yuanwei cried loudly and vomited blood at the same time. He was rushed from the hospital bed. He was only wearing an ivory jacket. Now his chest was stained with blood, which stung everyone's eyes and made them shed tears. There is really nothing worse than this in this world. The third update. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 266. Chapter 266. This is simply intolerable. Mr. Fuyan slapped the gavel, asked the guards to pull the king away, and interrogated Uncle Xiangzhong sternly. Wangzhong, 2 families in the Weisha village sued you for murder more than 10 years ago and killed their 2 families. Son, can you plead guilty? Wangzhong shrank his neck and didn't speak. He didn't know whether he was hesitating or not ready to admit guilt. Mr. Fuyan glanced at the officers, and the officers immediately started beating the water and fire sticks in their hands. The mighty sound sounded, and Wang Zhong shivered even more. Sir, I say. I didn't kill people to silence them, it was our old man who asked me to do this. I didn't dare to kill anyone, but they kept coming to ask for money, and they asked for more and more, so the old man asked me to find the Jianghu people dealt with them. Does this mean that Mr. Wang paid for the murder? Wang Yi originally held a glimmer of hope, stretched her neck and stared at Wang Zhong. Now after hearing Wang Zhong's words, she collapsed on the ground, like a puppet with its strings pulled out, and murmured to herself, "It's over. It's all over." But no one cared about her at the moment, and Mr. Fuyan continued to interrogate Wang Zhong. From when Mrs. Wang met Wang Yuanwei, how she asked Wang Yuanwei to be his son-in-law but was rejected, and even started to commit murder, and how her accomplice was silenced, I asked her all about it. Wang Zhong is an ordinary person after all. This matter has been pressing in his heart for many years, and he has nightmares from time to time. Especially because his children and grandchildren are incompetent, he feels more and more that he has received the retribution for the wrong things he did back then. So, at this moment, he simply told everything he knew, whether it was useful or not. Hence, hundreds of people in the hall were dumbfounded. Although the old man of the Wang family has passed away many years ago, many people in the city still remember him. In order to beg for a son, Mrs. Wang had to give up medicine and food, hoping that by doing good deeds, he would be able to keep the Wang family alive. It is a pity that Wang Yi is the only daughter who is over 50 years old. Unexpectedly, for this incense, he would actually target a scholar who was studying abroad. Everyone has heard of bullies women, but now this is the first time they have heard of men meant to marry into their wives, and the ones who were robbed were famous scholars. He is also a student from a poor family. Mr. Fuyan knows how difficult it is for a poor peasant family to provide a scholar, but he was snatched away by the Wang family. They exchanged kindness for hatred and deceived him for many years. Now he is dying and is not far away from death. This is simply intolerable. Mr. Fuyan gave a heavy slap and continued to ask, Wang Zhong, do you know what Wang Zhengkai's original name is? Where is his hometown? Wang Zhong cried so much that his nose was blurred with tears, and he kowtowed heavily and replied, "I don't know my uncle's name. I only know that he is a scholar who passed the new examination. He took a convoy south in Sci-fi. The old man and my uncle got along very well all the way. As a year-end friend, I was asked to call him Mr. Xiao, but I didn't know his name." Lord Fuyin was angry, but he had no choice but to comfort the king. "Don't worry, all the scholars in the imperial court are recorded. Just check the roster of Sci-fi to find which scholar was missing that year, and you should be able to find him family." In fact, he himself didn't believe this. Now Jiangbei is already the territory of the barbarians. They moved the capital in a hurry and left too many things behind. I am afraid that unimportant things such as the list of talents from more than 10 years ago were not brought at all. Coming to Xindu, Wang Yuanwei looked at Wang Zhong and Wang Yi with empty eyes, like walking zombies without crying or laughing. He didn't even know how to thank Mr. Fuyin for saying this. Everyone could not help but sigh and feel sad when they saw this. Put yourself in their shoes. If they passed the examination as a scholar and went out on a study tour in high spirits, only to be hit on the head with a stick and forget who they were and where their home was. The enemy also transformed into a benefactor and forced him to marry into his wife to repay his kindness. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 years passed. After giving birth to a child for the enemy's family, he continued the incense, and he was busy with a horse and a horse. In the end, he was about to die. The benefactor is an enemy, the person next to me is the daughter of the enemy, the son is of the blood of the enemy, and his life is in danger because his wife has concealed it all her life and delayed it. I'm afraid that no one can stand it and will be stimulated to the point of going crazy. Some women were so weak-hearted that they were already wiping away tears. This is too pitiful. Yes, how come a good person has such a miserable life? The Wang family is so unscrupulous. He has a human face and a beast's heart. This person who looks good on weekdays really lacks great virtue. The old scoundrel of the Wang family is dead, but Wang Yi is still alive. She must know all the bad things her father did. Of course she knows. If she doesn't know, what is she afraid of and what is she hiding? The people outside the hall were all furious. Looking at Wang Yi, they wanted to dig out 10,000 holes in her with their eyes. Wang Fu jumped up and down in the front row, urging Brother Li and Brother Cat, "Young master, hurry up and hug me. Only by watching can you survive." Brother Cat was young and didn't understand what was going on. He was so scared that he kept crying, but Brother Li understood most of it. Mom wants to kill Dad, and Grandpa is also a bad person. He wiped his tears fiercely, pulled his younger brother forward and hugged his father's neck. "Dad, don't be afraid, I will be filial to you when I grow up." "Woo, is Daddy going to die?" Brother Cat also kept crying. Wang Yuanwei finally regained some vitality. He looked at his two young sons and hugged them, tears flowing out like spring water. A man doesn't shed tears lightly, just because he hasn't reached the point where he is sad. There was silence in the hall, the women were sobbing, and the men were pulling up their sleeves and wiping their eyes from time to time. Mr. Fuyin sighed, took the sign and threw it on the ground. "Come here, take Wang Zhong to pick up the body quickly. Wang Yi will be escorted to the prison. The rest will go home and wait for the summons. They will be raised to the palace on a certain day." Immediately, a servant came forward, took the order, dragged Wang Zhong away and left. Ergozi and the family members who tied the pillars were crying and following behind, obviously wanting to see their son's burial place. Wang Yi struggled desperately and refused to go to the prison. "Ugh, I don't want to go to the prison. Help, help. I didn't kill anyone, so why should I be imprisoned? Who can find my uncle? Help." It's a pity that no one paid attention to her. The guard even got tired of her making noise, so he pulled her bun and dragged her out, causing her to cry out in pain. Brother Cat wanted to chase his mother, but his brother grabbed his arm tightly and burst into tears. Cat Brother's cry reminded Wang Yi. She struggled hard to pull her husband away and shouted, "Master, save me, we of you, it was all arranged by Daddy. I don't know anything. We of you, we have been married for more than 10 years. Master, you can't watch me die. It's all my father's fault, not me." Wang Yuanwei held two children in his arms and looked at her with a cold expression, as if he were looking at a stranger. After hearing this, the people in the hall couldn't help but pointed at Wang Yi and cursed. "Look, he is such a black-hearted person. In order to escape his guilt, he even betrayed his father. What can such a femme fatale woman do? She has received so many benefits for so many years, and she puts all the blame on her biological father." Wang Yi was finally dragged down, leaving Wang Yuanwei to support himself. He took two children to salute Mr. Fu Yin before going down. Wang Fu immediately carried his master on his back, escorted the two young masters into the carriage and left. Passing by the medicine shop, I went to Wang's house with Dr. Sun. Needless to say, Dr. Sun still said the same thing: Wang Yuanwei is about to die soon, and Luo Jingxian is difficult to save. In the courtyard of the Wang family, the two children were crying loudly. The servants were all wilted and too frightened to do their work. Everyone in the tea house was even more embarrassed, and even the tea tasted tasteless. There are also courageous people who like to watch the excitement and follow the officials to pick up the bones outside the city. After they come back, they spread the news throughout the city. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 267. Chapter 267. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Ergozi and Chuanzuzu are hateful people. They helped the Wang family rob their son-in-law for money. But they also died miserably. Their heads were chopped off and buried in the soil for many years. Their skin and flesh rotted away, leaving only separated bones, making it impossible to identify each other. The two families cried so hard that they wished they could faint and kept cursing the Wang family. The whole city was in an uproar because of this incident. In the palace, some eunuchs came out to buy things. When they got back, they told their companions to enjoy the fun. As word spread, even the concubines heard about it. When they talked about it privately, they all pitied the king for his hard life and did not despise the Wang family for being so cruel. Occasionally the emperor was tired, so he went to sit with his concubines and listened to a few words. Then he went back to the imperial study and asked the in-charge. The chief knew everything about the palace, so he naturally knew about it, so he explained it to the emperor in detail to relieve his boredom. The emperor was actually meddling in his own business. Wang Baoyi was also a bachelor and came from a scholarly family. How could such a scandal happen? His people are openly murdering famous scholars. It is really rampant. Send an order and investigate carefully to give justice to the scholar. The chief quickly took the order and sent the young out of the palace to deliver the order. At this moment, Third Master Wang was sitting in the back hall of the government office, chatting and drinking tea with Mr. Fu Yin. Although he was chatting and laughing on the surface, he was anxious in his heart. Last night, there was some business problem in the county next door. He rushed to deal with it, but as soon as he came back, he heard that his cousin had been arrested. His uncle's arrangement back then was exposed, and the reputation of the Wang family was simply crushed under the feet of the people in the city. Crush away. He was so angry that he came to the government office without even discussing it with his father, thinking of putting the case down quickly. But the governor just pretended to be confused and refused to agree. Mr. Wang's patience ran out. When he put down his teacup and was about to speak, a young came over to deliver the instructions. He quickly knelt down and listened. The more he listened, the paler his face became. Master Fu Yin borrowed the oral instructions and became even more confident. He stopped doing Tai Chi to Third Master Wang and saw off the guests with a smile. "Third Master Wang, you also heard it?" The emperor has an oral instruction. I want to see you off. I handle the case impartially, and I really don't have time to drink tea with the third master. Mr. Wang's face turned black, he cupped his hands and left, rushing home to discuss countermeasures with his father. Unlike the anger of the Wang family, the people in the city were happy to hear that the emperor had opened his mouth and wanted to avenge the king. "O holy emperor! Your Majesty has already spoken. This case will definitely be investigated. The king has been out for a while. Whose son is he? After he dies, he will not be able to enter the Wang family and cannot find his own home. Isn't he going to be a lonely soul in the wilderness? Ghost. Yes, yes, let's ask, who has ever lost a son? Yes, ask them all, just in case you find the right one. Whose family came from beyond the Great Wall? Have you heard about whose family lost their son?" With the emperor taking the lead, the people became more and more concerned about this case, and even started a craze to help the king find his family throughout the process. Anyone who has heard that someone is missing from a relative or friend's home, or who has been away for many years without news, should ask more questions. Some people also rushed to Zindu to confirm whether Wang Yuanwei was the child who had been missing for many years. Amid high expectations, Mr. Fuyin did not keep everyone waiting for too long and continued the trial after 2 days. However, there is really nothing to investigate in this case. Wang Zongdu gave a clear explanation and the bones were found. Even Dr. Sun, the big-mouthed doctor, wrote a testimony, proving that Wang Yuanwei's illness had been delayed for more than 10 years, leading to his current terminal illness and his short life. This time, there was a sea of people in front of the government office, dozens of times more than last time. I wish all the people in the city came. In the restaurant opposite the government office, the private rooms on the second floor have been sold to sky-high prices. But no one can book the best box. But this time the guests sitting inside were not Luz Haiheng and Mrs. Kui, but an honored guest. Soon, all the plaintiffs and defendants from the last court hearing gathered together again. Only the wives of Gozi and Chuanzuzou came. It is said that the old man and the old lady are too sick to get up. No one can bear the burden of sending a white-haired person to a black-haired person. Wang Yuan was wearing an azure-colored gown, which made him look increasingly skinny, and his face was still sallow, but he didn't know if it was for the sake of his children that he kept his spirits up, but his eyes were a little brighter than last time. Only Wang Zhong and Wang Yi were particularly embarrassed. That's because it's uncomfortable in prison, and they can't bear the hardship. The food is rotten, rats and cockroaches are running around, and they urinate in the cage. It's so dirty that they can't eat or sleep at all. Especially Wang Yi. The officers hated her for her cruelty and sent her to a cell with others. In the past 2 days, she was beaten at every turn, without food or water, and was kept in a corner. So, now Wang Yi's hair is as messy as a bird's nest, her clothes are dirty, and she is worse than a beggar on the street. As soon as she entered the hall, she threw herself at Wang Yuanwei's feet and cried miserably, "Master, I was wrong, I was afraid that you would leave me and the child when you remembered what happened before, so I didn't dare to treat you. But I didn't want to kill you. Master, please forgive me, okay? I will repay you for the rest of my life. Please, don't send me back to prison." Wang Yuanwei took a step back and refused to answer. As soon as Mr. Fuyin was shocked, the guards immediately came forward and pulled Wang Yi away, forcing him to kneel on one side. With all the witnesses and material evidence in hand, Mr. Fuyin read them out loud one by one so that the people in the hall could hear them clearly. Finally, Mr. Fuyin asked, "Wang Xingkaiu, you are the biggest sufferer in this case. Tell me what compensation you want, whether it is gold, silver, or whatever, I will try my best to satisfy you." Wang Yuanwei stepped forward and said, "Sir, I don't want gold or silver. I only want 2 children. They are my blood and cannot continue the incense for my enemies. In addition, I would like to ask your excellency to interrogate clearly, whether Wang Yi or the Wang family. Someone must know my name. I want to find my family and recognize my ancestors. This request is reasonable and reasonable, so Mr. Fuyin nodded. If you don't tell me, I will ask clearly. After that, he turned to Wang Yi and said, Wang Yi, do you know Wang Zhengkai's real name? When your father kidnapped Wang Zhengkai and came to the Wang family to marry you, since he told you the truth, you must know his name, so why don't you hurry up and recruit him? Wang Yi shook her head desperately. No, I don't know, my father didn't tell me. Wang Yuanwei gritted his teeth and cursed with red eyes. Wang Yi, you are already going to kill me. Are you not willing to let me feel at ease before I die? Wang Yi tightly grasped the hem of her clothes and whispered, if you promise not to pursue the case or send me back to prison, I will tell you. Impossible. Wang Yuanwei was so angry that his eyes turned black. He tried his best to hold on. He turned around and looked at the people in the dark hall. He choked and asked, fathers and fellow villagers, take a look. Does anyone know whose family I belong to? I don't want to die here in the enemy's yard. I want to recognize my ancestors and return to my clan. I want to see my mother before I die. I want to be buried in my ancestral grave. I don't want to be a lonely ghost. The Yuan Weilang, who was originally so elegant and handsome, is now skin and bones after being tortured. Years of hatred have finally come to light, but he still cannot recognize his ancestors. At this moment, I am praying like tears, just to see my family before I die, and everyone who hears it will be heartbroken. The people roared loudly and shouted at the top of their lungs, everyone recognizes you, please help the king. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 268. Chapter 268 Miracle from Heaven. Some people kept coming forward and then shaking their heads and retreating. It was obvious that Wang Yuanwei was different from the person they were looking for. Even those who want to fish in troubled waters and covet the Wang family's money will not dare to pretend to be others now. What's more, Yuan Wang was already miserable enough, and they really couldn't bear to lie to him again. Wang Yuanwei and others were extremely disappointed, and everyone sighed again and again. Master Fuyin frowned, and after taking the order, he was about to torture Wang Yi. At this moment, a woman whispered, you are the eldest son of the Li family, right? Your name is Zhen Sheng. Wang Yuanwei suddenly turned around, and the crowd dispersed in an uproar, letting the woman who spoke out. The woman looked very old and was dressed like a slave. She was a little nervous when she was suddenly receiving so much attention. Wang Yuanwei bowed and saluted, suppressing his excitement, and asked, Madam, do you know me? The woman nodded, I see you look familiar. My hometown is outside the Great Wall. There is a family named Li in the village next door. After his son was selected as a scholar, he went out to study and never came back. I am not familiar with that family either, but the Li family's office, I saw him a few times at Liashuaxi, but the scholar seemed to be much younger than you. Isn't this nonsense? That was more than 10 years ago, of course you are young. Li Zhensheng, is Wang Yuanwei's real name Li Zhensheng? The people onlookers were talking about it, which made the woman anxious. She was afraid that others would say she was a liar, so she shouted out, I look like him. If you don't believe me, you can go to the Li family to identify them. They fled to the south, and I saw them a few days ago. What? The Li family is nearby, so we must ask. The people watching couldn't help shouting. Wang Yuanwei was also a little excited. He turned around and knelt on the ground. My lord, please torture me. I want to know if I am Li Zhensheng. Wang Yi was so frightened that she collapsed on the ground. She didn't expect to be recognized. Just as the guards were about to step forward with dark faces, Wang Yi cried at the top of her lungs, don't hit me, I said. It's Li Zhensheng, Weavu, I only know this name, and my father doesn't know the rest, Ken said. Ah, I found it, I found it. Oh, it's really called Li Zhensheng. Great, God has opened his eyes, Yuan Wang can now recognize his ancestors and return to his clan. All the people cheered and were so happy that they wanted to hug each other. Wang Yuanwei cried with joy. He looked at Mr. Fuyan and wanted to say something, but no sound came out in his throat. Mr. Fuyan immediately called the woman forward and asked, "Can you tell me clearly, where did you meet the Li family? Can you find them now?" "Yes, yes," the woman nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. As if she had made a great contribution, she danced excitedly and pointed outside the city. "The Li family is just outside the city at Broken Gold Beach and the Hot Spring Valley. I met them when I was waiting for my master to go out for fun. I didn't expect that I would actually help found his boss." The governor did not blame the woman for being rude, and shouted to the officer to go quickly to find the Li family. All the people raised their feet in anticipation and started talking excitedly. "This is really more exciting than a play, and Yuan Wang actually found his family. Yeah, maybe even God can't stand it, please be merciful." But some people are wondering, such a big thing has happened to the Wang family, why doesn't anyone come to see it? Maybe it's because I'm afraid of being implicated. We are all a family, a nest of snakes and rats, and no one is good. The restaurant opposite was also bustling with people. The nobleman in the largest box knocked the fan in his hand and said with a smile, "Broken Gold Beach, Li family. Isn't this such a coincidence?" After thinking about it, he told his entourage, "Go and ask if the Marquis has done anything recently." The entourage kowtowed respectfully and retreated. Within 2/4 of an hour, the entourage came back and reported in a low voice, "The Marquis people have provided Dali Temple with a clue. It seems that the assassin once hid in a villa of the Wang family. The Wang family has been summoned by Dali Temple." No wonder, the nobleman drank tea with a smile and said, "This is to prevent Wang Baoyi from interfering. I'm afraid this scene has been rehearsed a long time ago. My cousin is happy to protect him, just protect them. These Jiangnan aristocratic families are usually a bit arrogant, there is nothing wrong with killing the chickens to scare the monkeys." The entourage did not dare to respond, bowed silently, and retreated to a corner. At this moment, the officer brought a middle-aged man over on a fast horse, and the people got out of the way. This man is the second eldest son of the Li family. With a look of confusion and panic on his face, he went to the court and pretended to be calm and saluted, "Sir, Li Yisheng, a common man, went to the city to buy something today and was arrested halfway there. I really don't know what mistake he made." Only then did everyone realize why the guards came so quickly. It turned out that they had picked up the people halfway. Mr. Fuyan waved his hand, motioning for him to look at the expectant Wang Yuanwei. "Look at this man, do you know him?" Li Laoer didn't know why. He turned his head and looked over and was stunned. After a long while, he rushed over with a cry, hugged Wang Yuanwei tightly, and cried loudly, "Brother, are you the eldest brother? Wow, brother, where have you been? I have been gone for more than 10 years, and my mother is still crying. You're blind, why did you show up? We looked for you everywhere, but we couldn't find you, brother." Mr. Fuyan was also impatient. He was stunned and asked, "Li Yisheng, what proof do you have that this person is your eldest brother?" "He is my eldest brother. How could I not recognize him?" Li Laoer was afraid that others would his eldest brother away. He grabbed Yuan Wei's arm tightly and shouted in desperation, "My eldest brother has a piece on his lower back, the birthmark is as big as a copper coin, and there is also a scar, which was a scratch from when I was taken to climb a tree when I was a child." As he spoke, he pulled off Wang Yuanwei's clothes, and sure enough, the scars and birthmarks were all there. Mr. Fuyan couldn't help but stand up, and the people also rushed forward to get a clear look. "Ah, there is indeed a birthmark. What a family. Outside the Wang Yuan, it's Li Zhensheng. Wang Yuanwei found his family members. God has opened his eyes have been opened. Didn't those people at Sujintan come from the north to flee the famine? Wang Yuanwei was also injured at Sujintan. No one would believe it even if it wasn't for God's sake. Thousands of miles away, a family is actually reunited here. The king no longer needs to be a lonely ghost. The people shouted loudly, laughed and cried. In the courtroom, Li Lao'er and Wang Yuanwei also hugged each other and cried bitterly. The officers turned their heads and wiped their tears quietly. Seeing Wang Yi trembling and trying to hide, they kicked her hard. Wang Yi's bones rolled down the steps and landed not far away in front of the people. I don't know which woman buying vegetables was the first to take the sweet potatoes from the basket and smash them. Vicious woman. I beat you to death and let you do evil. Did you make a mistake in your calculation? Wang Yuanwei finally found a home. Yes, beat her to death. Such a vicious woman is harmful to others while she is alive. Hit her, hit her. For a time, vegetables, sweet potatoes, eggs, and even snacks and fruits became weapons, hitting Wang Yi one after another, causing her to crawl away with her head in pain. I don't know who got angry and started throwing stones again, hitting Wang Yi's head, causing her to bleed. At this moment, Li Lao'er also heard the whole story from the mouth of the king. He stared with blood-red eyes, knelt down and kowtowed to Mr. Fuyin, "Sir, please make the decision for the Li family and avenge my eldest brother Suhen. I want to take him and his nephew home and recognize their ancestors." Lord Fuyin nodded, called the servants to drag Wang Yi back, and said loudly, "The evidence for the Wang family's robbery of a talented scholar as a son-in-law is conclusive, and the verdict is pronounced in court. The father of the criminal Wang Yi robbed people, killed people, and silenced them. The crime is extremely heinous. Should be beheaded as a warning to the public, but because he died early, the crime was carried out by Queen Yi, who was also an accomplice. She was sentenced to 30 lashes with a cane, exiled to the southwest border, and served 20 years of hard labor. The second son born to Wang Yi and all the property of the Wang family were inherited by the victim Li Zhensheng, and the father and son were allowed to change their household registrations and recognize their ancestors and return to the clan. In addition, Wang Zhong helped Zhou to abuse, hurt, and harmed others, and was sentenced to 30 lashes with a cane, exiled to the southwest border, and hard labor 20 years. The sons of two common people in the Weisha village were injured first and silenced later. Their guilt was equal and they will not be held accountable. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 269. Chapter 269. See through but don't tell the truth. Thank you, sir, for making the decision. Thank you, sir, for your decision. Li Zhensheng and Li Lao'er knelt on the ground and kowtowed, both with tears streaming down their faces. Especially Li Zhensheng, he felt as if he had knocked over the condiment bottle and couldn't explain the feeling at all. More than 10 years of injustice have finally been brought to light. He is no longer Wang Zhengkaiu, he is Li Zhensheng, the eldest son of Li. The people in the hall seemed to be celebrating the new year, cheering loudly and excitedly, "Good judgment! Good judgment! Woo, that's it, God's eyes are open. Wang Yuanwei has become Li Yuanwei, and finally there is a good result. Recognize your ancestors and return to your clan, recognize your ancestors and return to your clan." Mr. Fuyin walked down the steps, personally helped Li Zhensheng up, held his hands in his hands and said, "Congratulations, Uncle Li, congratulations, your dream has finally come true. May all your wishes come true." What did Mr. Fuyin guess? Li Zhensheng's eyes flashed, and he lowered his head and bowed his head. "Thank you, sir. Li Zhensheng has wasted more than 10 years, and now he is able to clear up his troubles. It is all thanks to your help, and he will definitely be richly rewarded in the future." Mr. Fuyin smiled and waved his hand. "I just did my duty. If Mr. Li wants to thank you, he still has to thank the emperor. Without the emperor's oral instructions, this matter would not have gone so smoothly." Li Zhensheng nodded. "The emperor's kindness is so great that Li will definitely remember it in his heart." After saying that, he pulled Li Laoer away, knelt down in the direction of the palace, and shouted loudly, "Thank you for your great kindness, your majesty, and thank you for helping the Li family reunite. Long live your majesty." The two brothers buckled their heads 3 times, then turned to the people in the hall and said, "Thank you to all the fellow villagers for their hard work for many days. Li Zhensheng and the Li family will keep this in mind, and they will surely be rewarded generously in the future." The people hurriedly got out of the way and returned the courtesy. "Mr. Li, these are what we should do. Yes, the Wang family lacks great virtue, and no one can see through it. Li, please go home quickly, you can finally see my mother. Li Yuanwei needs to take good care of his illness and get well quickly. Ordinary people may have some minor flaws, such as being stingy and taking advantage of others, but most of them are simple and kind-hearted. They witnessed Li Zhensheng's vindication from beginning to end. Now that Li Zhensheng has found his family, they are really happy. At this moment, your words and my words are all instructions and concerns." The atmosphere was harmonious and wonderful. It was the time when everyone was moved and had red eyes. However, some people were unhappy, and that was Wang Yi. She was frightened. The son-in-law who came to the door was brought back by his father, and the 2 gangsters were killed by his father, but they had nothing to do with her. The only thing she did wrong was to conceal her illness and not treat her husband. She was afraid that her husband would leave after he recovered, and that he would abandon the home and children. She loves her children and her family so much, why can't she be forgiven? Wang Yi stepped forward like a madman, tugged at the corner of Li Zhensheng's robe, and cried, "Ugh, my husband, save me, I don't want to be sent away. I was wrong, I shouldn't have hidden your illness, I'm just like a cow or a horse. Atonement, please save me, help me, beg for mercy." Li Zhensheng pulled back his robe and said coldly, "The crime you committed cannot be tolerated by the national law. After arriving in the southwest, work hard and don't worry about the children. After I return to the Li family, I will bring them up properly. Become an upright and good person." Wang Yi was about to rush forward, but Li Laoer was so angry that he kicked her aside. If possible, Li Laoer would like to eat the flesh of the woman in front of him alive. The Li family has been suffering for more than 10 years, all because this woman wants to find a son-in-law. Just like this, she still has the nerve to ask for forgiveness from her elder brother. Lord Fuyin couldn't stand it either, so he ordered the officers, "Execute the execution immediately." The officers rushed up, pulled a stool, selected a plank, and tied people up, all at once. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yi and Wang Zhong were tied to a bench, facing the people in the city, like pigs waiting to be slaughtered. Wang Zhong's face was ashen. He raised his dim eyes and suddenly seemed to see his cowering son and his frightened grandson in the crowd. He was startled. He was a little hesitant and fearful. He wanted to shout a few times, but he swallowed it down immediately. These are the punishments he should bear for his sins. If he accepts the punishment honestly, his children and grandchildren will have no worries about food and clothing for the rest of their lives. But if he says something that he shouldn't say, his children and grandchildren will have no protection, and his son is a bad gambler, and the family may be ruined in a few years. Bang, bang, the palm-wide wooden planks hit the skin like raindrops, and the sound it made was frightening. Wang Yi screamed repeatedly, and the clothes behind her were quickly soaked in blood. She desperately tried to find the Wang family in the crowd, hoping that someone would come to save her. What a pity, I didn't see it until I passed out. She was going crazy with hatred. She had saved 20,000 taels of silver at home with her uncle, and spent half of it to bribe the government. She wouldn't be like this. Actually, she really wronged the Wang family. Mrs. Wang didn't want to be greedy for the 20,000 silver. He really had something to do at home and had too much time to take care of himself. In the morning, they wanted to go to the government office. Even if they knew that the emperor had issued an order to the governor to handle the matter impartially, for the sake of the Wang family, the governor would more or less let go and his niece would suffer less. Unexpectedly, before they could go out, people from Dali Temple came looking for them. Lao San was tied into a rice dumpling with iron chains and dragged away directly. If his son and niece want to compete, of course Mr. Wang will choose his son. But he waited outside Dali Temple all morning and couldn't get any information. He had no idea what crime his son had committed. Seeing that the sun was rising above the head, the servants at home ran over and reported in a low voice, "Old master, the results have been obtained at the government office. The lady was sentenced to 30 canes, exiled to the southwest, and hard labor for 20 years. Mrs. Wang frowned. Why is the sentence so harsh? Xiaoyi is just a woman and she doesn't know the inside story. The servant lowered his head, for fear of being offended, and whispered, I don't know, but the young lady and her uncle are always a couple, and there are 2 young masters. I heard that my uncle has gone to Broken Gold Beach. Do you want to go with me? My uncle said that he wants to intercede. Broken Gold Beach. You said the Li family is in Broken Golden Beach. A flash of inspiration suddenly flashed in Mr. Wang's mind, as if he had grasped the key to the matter. The servant became more and more frightened, and replied after careful consideration, Yes, old man, my uncle's original home was the Li family in Sujintan, the same Sujintan where Hot Spring Villa is. Is Broken Gold Beach the village of Xintinghao? Mrs. Wang asked again. It should be that there were people in the city who were jealous before and were taught a lesson. Legend has it that the Marquis of Xinting took a fancy to the place and put his name on it. The servant told everything he knew. What is Xintinghao? It turns out to be Xintinghao, Mrs. Wang said, biting his back teeth. He did not speak any more, but squinted his eyes slightly, and suddenly understood everything. The son was arrested and brought to Dali Temple, probably because of the handiwork of Marquis Xinting. The Marquis of Xinting wanted to protect the Li family and did not want them to interfere in the affairs of Wang Yi and his wife, so he had Lao San operated on. At this time, a small official from Dali Temple evadedly came up to him and whispered, Grand Bachelor, I can find out. I heard that the reason why the third master was arrested was because of the villa that the third master had left unused in the east of the city. The assassin who assassinated Xintinghao made a stop. Sure enough. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 270. Chapter 270 Eyes twitch, a happy event is coming. Old Mrs. Wang nodded, fully understanding the ins and outs of the matter, but he also felt even more worried. The investigation into the assassination of Marquis Xinting was personally supervised by the emperor. Now that their family was suddenly involved, it's hard to say that even the emperor knew about it, but he didn't stop him. Think again that the government office received an oral order from the emperor. Could it be that the emperor was also using this incident to attack the Wang family, and by extension, the entire Jiangnan family? Old Mrs. Wang frowned more and more as he thought about it, a layer of cold sweat covering his back. Let's go back home. The Wang family's carriage quickly ran away, leaving the clerk behind. He pinched a piece of silver, spit out a mouthful of dust, and cursed in a low voice, You are so scared that you don't even want your son. Sure enough, the Wang family doesn't have any good things. In the government office, Wang Yi and Wang Zhong were beaten until they were and thrown into prison, waiting to be sent to the southwest to do hard labor. Li Zhensheng and Li Laoer also thanked Mr. Fuyan and the fellow villagers again, and then got on the carriage that Wang Fu arrived. On the carriage, Brother Li and Brother Mao hugged each other tightly. They did not see their mother being beaten, but they instinctively knew that there would be no good outcome for her. Although Dad is right, if you make a mistake, you will have to pay the price, but that is their mother, so she still cannot avoid being sad. Li Zhensheng got in the car and quickly hugged the two children. Don't be afraid. They're all gone. Dad will take you to see Grandma. The two children remained silent, which made Li Laoer feel distressed. He touched their hair gently and chatted with them with a smile. Brother Li, Brother Cat, I am your second uncle. Let's go back to Grandma's house together. Did you know that my grandma's house has a hot spring villa, which is very beautiful and lively? There is also an orchard on the mountain where you can climb trees and pick fruits, and there is also a melon field where you can sit and eat cold melon and cantaloupe. It's a pity that the garden is closed now, but next year my second uncle will plant more so that you can have enough to eat. You can look at the melon garden with your brothers, go fishing in the river together, and you can go fishing in the mountains with your fourth uncle. Wild rabbits, pheasants, and they also caught a lot of wild pigeons a few days ago. Brother Cat is younger, more playful, and his eyes are bright when he listens. Brother Li wanted to be more sensible and asked in a low voice, Second uncle, will my father's illness get better with Grandma by his side? Yes, Li Laoer nodded, stretched out his hand to hug Brother Li, looked into his eyes, and solemnly promised, Second uncle promises you that he will definitely cure your father. You are my Li family, your father. We have gone through a lot of hardships and traveled thousands of miles to find you here. Therefore, your father will definitely get better, and we will live together as a family. You will study in the newly built school in the village, learn martial arts from your fourth uncle to keep fit, play with your brothers and sisters, eat delicious food cooked by your fourth aunt, and be loved by your grandma and the whole family. I don't know if he felt the determination in his second uncle's words, but Brother Li's eyes were red. If these are what the second uncle said, then it seems that it is not intolerable without a mother. The weather in late autumn is a rare refreshing time of the year. The sky is cloudless and dazzlingly blue. The autumn wind brings a little bit of coolness and blows slowly everywhere. Farmers who have finally finished their autumn harvest are now ready to enjoy the scenery. Walking in the fields with hands behind your back, or lying on the haystack and looking at the sky, you feel extremely comfortable. Similarly, there have been an especially large number of guests in the hot spring valley these days. There is nothing more pleasant than soaking in the hot springs, drinking tea, chatting, and occasionally leaning on the big rocks to look at the sky when you are lazy. In the new village, wood and stone have already begun to be hauled in to build a school. The people in the village were busy finishing the autumn harvest, and they worked non-stop on this matter without a day's rest. Working is naturally hard, but no one in the village complains of being tired. This is for the children to study and for the future of Zinken. No matter how tired or bitter it is, they still feel sweet in their hearts. The old lady has been feeling a little disturbed for some reason these days. I got up early and walked around the yard, picking up a water ladle and throwing it down again, chopping a piece of cabbage without knowing what to do, as if there were no flies, stumbling around everywhere. She finally became discouraged and sat under the eaves, frowning and sighing, I'm so old, nothing is right for me. Jiyan ran back from the yard next door. Seeing that Grandma was unhappy, he quickly hugged her and stretched out her little hand to rub her brow. If Grandma is happy, I'll give you some money. When she said this, she turned her little hand over, and there was an extra ingot of silver in her palm, and then she gave it to the old lady. The old lady was startled. She quickly looked around and breathed a sigh of relief when she saw no one else. She raised her hand and slapped her granddaughter, and cursed in a low voice, how many times have I told you not to take things out casually, or you may be regarded as a goblin and have you taken away. Then she gave the silver to her granddaughter and said, put it away, grandma is not short of silver. Jian was not afraid either. He accepted the money with a smile and took out a cantaloupe. Milk, eat the melon with Fu Niu, it's sweet. The old lady did not refuse this time. She carefully broke open the cantaloupe and collected the seeds. Then she held her granddaughter and sat under the eaves, eating and chatting. Fu Niu, grandma is really panicking. I wonder if something is going to happen? But the family is fine. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Yeah, Jian held a melon seed that had slipped through the net on her nose, nodded heavily, and responded, I've thought too much. Mrs. Li was so amused that she laughed, quickly took the melon seeds, wiped her granddaughter's nose clean, and said angrily, little greedy cat, you are becoming more and more sensible, and you know how to comfort grandma. As he was talking, Li Laozi came in from outside. Seeing the smile on his mother's face, he was secretly relieved. Just now when the second brother went out, he gave him a few careful words, and then he realized that the second brother and the others were planning something big and wanted to take the eldest brother home. But whether the Wang family can release the person, it is very difficult no matter how you think about it. At this moment, he didn't know what was going on in the city. He was flustered for a moment, so he simply came back to guard his mother. Mom, how is Mr. Ye doing over there? It's good Dong Mei is taking care of me now, but I still want to go to the valley. Mrs. Li broke off another half of the cantaloupe and gave it to her son. Li Laozi was startled and quickly stopped him. Mother, I saw Dong Mei leaving just now. Maybe Mr. Ye has some instructions. In the past few days, Mother will pay more attention to Mr. Ye. Don't go to the valley. Leave Ye just take care of it, young master and Fu Niu. Dong Mei left, why didn't you tell me? The old lady was confused, but she still responded, okay, don't worry, Mr. Ye can go to the fields, so he doesn't have much work. As she spoke, she hugged Fu Niu and went to the next yard. Li Laozi breathed a sigh of relief and took a bite of the cantaloupe. The cantaloupe that used to be so sweet was now tasteless at all. He couldn't help but look towards Zindu, with high thoughts in his heart. Mr. Ye was walking slowly in the yard. When he saw the old lady coming, he smiled and said, Auntie, why don't you take a rest? I'm afraid there will be a big happy event at home soon. When the business gets busy, I'm afraid Auntie won't even be able to sleep. The old lady was puzzled when she heard this and asked, what a happy event? My eyelids are twitching all day long, and I am worried that something will happen. Is it a happy event? Mr. Ye smiled and said nothing, but Jian guessed it and smiled like a little fox. The old lady was even more confused. What on earth is going on? Does Fu Niu know about it? Before she could continue to ask, there was already a noise outside, so she turned around and went out. End of this chapter.